What does St. Augustine, the 4th century pastor, teach us about dealing with pornography? Well, St. Augustine, the area in which he pastored, was very much Christianized. It had been evangelized, and the people had accepted the gospel, and they were attempting to walk closely with Jesus Christ. But there was one exception in this area, and that is that the men in his congregation, the Christians within his community, practiced concubinage. So they would marry wives, and they would see their wives as good for having babies, but the men would keep concubines within their homes who would satisfy their sexual appetites. In one sense, that is very much like pornography. And we like to look down on people who had concubines, and rightfully so, for that is wrong. We see polygamy as wrong. But pornography, I don't know how different it is. There's a degree of differences, sure, but there's also a degree of similarities. Pornography is essentially electronic concubinage. A guy has a harem of his favorite porn stars or favorite porn movies that he goes to and steps outside of his marriage bed to get his fulfillment where he shouldn't. So what St. Augustine did is he tackled this issue head on in his church. He'd had enough of it. He stood up in front of his congregation one day and addressed the men specifically in the church, and he warned them severely. And then he asked the question to himself, why am I saying this to you? And he looked straight at them and he said, because people that do what you're doing go straight to hell. St. Augustine's biographer, Peter Brown, comments on the situation and says, it is on this issue, the concubinage in St. Augustine's community, which affected the traditional structure of the family most intimately, that we see Augustine and his flock in head-on collision. He addressed his flock directly, and he went into a head-on collision with his congregation. And St. Augustine didn't just stop with the men. He empowered the women in his congregation to stand up against their husbands' concubinage. And so after addressing the men in his church and warning them that they're going to go to hell for this behavior, St. Augustine turned to the women. And he said to the women as an admonition, I do not want Christian married women to lie down under this. I solemnly warn you, I lay down this rule, I command you as your bishop, and as Christ who commands in me, God knows in whose sight my heart burns. He solemnly told the women, don't take this from your husbands, it's too serious. And then he moved on and he addressed how big of an issue it is within his congregation. Listen to what he said. For so many years now, we have baptized so many men to no effect. If there are none here who preserve the vows of chastity they took, far be it from me to believe that this is so. I would have been better not to have been your bishop than that this should have been the case. But I hope and I believe the opposite. It is part of my sorry situation that I am forced to know all about adulterers and cannot be informed about the chaste. The virtues in you that give me joy are hidden from me, while what distresses me is only too well known. He lamented the fact that so many men in his church were adulterers. And I believe that from St. Augustine, we have a 4th century model of how to deal with pornography in our churches. We need to lament when we receive knowledge of somebody engaging in this activity. We need to warn solemnly against the hellfire that awaits those who do not repent. And we need to empower the spouses who are being victimized by this terrible behavior to stand up for the good of their spouses, to protect them from the wrath to come and lead them out of this wickedness. Just like St. Augustine, we need to have head-on collisions with sin within our congregations. And just like St. Augustine, we need to point people to the hope, the love, and the grace that is available in Jesus Christ. If they but repent and believe in him, he will wash all their sins away.